Michelle, and you're watching or listening to VoxBox F1 Pod. Welcome to the Las Vegas Grand Prix episode. As always, Vegas is full of glitz and it's full of glam, and apparently it's full of Mickey Mouse, but a lot less substance. And I know we've been really spoiled with like action-packed races the last couple of weekends, but despite the race not being as exciting as we've become accustomed to, there was still a lot that happened, particularly in the first lap and after the race, way after the race, because the FIA, I don't even know what was going on, but way after the race, there were things that happened that had huge implications on the World Drivers' Championship and like who will be our champion. It could literally be anyone at this point, specifically 3 people. It could only be 3 people, and some more than others. But anyway, I'm very excited to discuss all of it. But as you can see or hear, when I tell you right now, I'm not cooking this week because what do you even cook for Vegas? I am drinking though because there's always drinks in Vegas. Okay. I'm going for a cozy fall cocktail because my mom made homemade quince syrup and I just needed to use it somehow. But you know I love a theme. Why should I say it like that? I love to have an F1 theme to my food and drinks. So I will be making a cocktail called the Quintessential McFizz. What is that? I'll tell you. It is quince syrup, gin, and some grapefruit soda because I don't have grapefruit juice, and some lemon juice. And what does it mean? Well, I'll tell you. It means that when it matters most, McLaren will bottle it and make a decision or a choice or a mistake, intentionally or unintentionally. McLaren will do something that will cause their drivers' hopes and dreams to fizzle away, as they have today. So, thank you, McLaren. There's nothing more quintessentially McLaren than making your drivers sad. Well, there is something that is more quintessential than that, and that's Ferrari, but today's not a Ferrari day. So, cheers to McLaren fucking up their drivers' hopes and dreams once again. At least one of them, maybe 2 of them. We don't know yet. Cheers. Now that we have a drink in hand, hope you've also made a quintessential McFizz. You too can make your hopes and dreams fizzle away with just a sip of this. But it's so good you won't even care. Anyway, let's dive straight into the race with the digital warm-up. Lap one, F1 news. So Dorian won the F1 Academy World Championship. She is a driver for Mercedes, and it was so wholesome to see her celebrating with Susie, with Toto. Oh my God, there was such a cute moment where when she won, she like ran into Toto's arms and he like lifted her up like it was a sports movie. It was so cute. And then it was also really nice. George also came to the ceremony, I think, or like after she won. But Mercedes also posted a clip of everyone, all the engineers and the drivers watching the race in the room, you know, where they do all of the strategy stuff. You know, where they all sit with the headphones. Anyway, it was a video of Kimi literally losing his shit watching the race. He just kept swearing. He's like, oh my God, that was so close. Like he could not calm down. He's like, I need to go take a nap. It was a lot for poor little Kimi, but it was really cute to see them all supporting her. I really hope that F1 Academy becomes more prominent and more intertwined with the F1 world, but more so, I hope that we see girls go through the feeder teams more prominently. Just make it a more even divide, because girls are small, which F1 drivers need to be. So in theory, we are much more, not me, other girls, definitely not me. Women are much more set up to be small, agile, and to be able to be strong without getting too much muscle mass, which is like the biggest concern of all the drivers all the time, is being a certain weight. And like I feel like girls are much more adept at being small and nimble and strong and powerful without it being tipped over too much. So I think F1 was kind of made for women, honestly. Fans and drivers. That's neither here nor there. All right. This is not really this is not really F1 news, but it's based off of news from last week, or 2 weeks ago. The penalty that Oscar received in Brazil, where he got the 10-second penalty when no one really thought it was his fault, except for apparently McLaren. A lot of the drivers have spoken out saying that he shouldn't have deserved that. Carlos was very vocal about it, saying that they need to schedule like an urgent meeting with the FIA, because anyone who knows racing knows that Oscar shouldn't have gotten that penalty, which I thought was interesting that a lot of people are saying that, and the only people not saying that were McLaren. Again, going back to my point that I think feeling more support from his team, I think Oscar's mental struggles are coming from lack of internal support versus pressures from the external world, I think. But again, all conjecture. I have no way of knowing if that's true. Lap 2, off-track F1. So first I want to start with some of the comments made by the CEO of a Ferrari last week. His name is John Elkann, in regards to the team's performance in Brazil, where both drivers DNF'd. And he went on a whole rant about how Brazil was such a huge disappointment and how people need to step it up. And I think the part that specifically triggered a lot of people was him saying that the drivers, aka Lewis and Charles, need to talk less and focus on driving. This caused, of course, an uproar amongst most people. I'm not linking it in the show notes because I linked his comments in the show notes, but I couldn't find Charles's and Lewis's response as a primary source. Do I need to be citing primary sources? I saw people quoting it, but I couldn't find the official source, so like I didn't want to link it. But I don't know why I'm treating this like it's National History Day project. Regardless, I found you can find I'll tell you what they said, but I'm not linking it because it's not like an official source that I can 100% know came from their mouths. Charles gave his usual spiel, is like, I know John and I know what he meant, and like blah 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 blah, like we're all united and like committed to making this happen. Lewis allegedly made a joke that he's willing to do less media if that's the request, which made me laugh. But he went on to say a similar message to Charles, being like, in all seriousness though, like we're all united and we're all working towards the same goal, like here and back in the factory. He loves a factory. Lewis loves a factory callback. Not like a callback like we're calling back a product, but like a callback like bringing it back to the factory. Anyway, I don't know why I'm over explaining that. So the drivers gave their standard PR answers, but I did love Lewis throwing in a little joke about doing less media. Gunther made some comments saying like, obviously he's the head of the organization, so he can say whatever he wants, but to say any of that about specifically these two drivers is insane, because Charles has given literally his life, his soul, his everything to Ferrari. He bleeds red. Well, we all bleed red. Okay, that was a bad example. Charles is what I met Ferrari through and through. One of the main talking points every time something goes wrong at Ferrari is that why has Charles signed his life away to this team? He is wasted there. They're not maximizing on his potential, and they're not giving him the tools to perform to his best ability. They're wasting away a 7-time world champion. It's also just like very Ferrari. In this case, I would like to say that this man, John Elkann, is very fit to be head of Ferrari, because there's nothing Ferrari loves to do more. There's nothing Enzo Ferrari did better than to assign blame to everyone but himself and the team. The car is never the problem at Ferrari, ever. You insult the car, you're out of there. That is never the problem. It's Charles chatting shit about Ferrari. Has Charles ever said a negative word about Ferrari? Ever? I don't think I've ever heard him say anything negative. I think the worst thing he's ever said about Ferrari is that they wouldn't let him do his own clothing line, which, by the way, he now has. So everything else has been very personal. Like when he's upset with the car, he's always like, I wish we could do better. I'm so sad about my performance. Like he really never, ever, ever shits on the team. It's honestly crazy behavior coming from the head of Ferrari to say that about these two drivers. No driver has ever given so much to a team than Charles. He's like the freaking Little Mermaid. He's like given his life and soul to Ursula, the big, aka Enzo, the big bad Ferrari entity that will like hold him hostage forever due to his emotional trauma. Like it's just like ridiculous to say this. Maybe you can say it about Lewis, who has been sad at every media thing, but like Charles has also been sad, and also Lewis is always thanking the whole team. He's never thrown the team under the bus. And to say that a 7-time world champion needs to drive more is stupid. And to say Charles is not trying is equally stupid. I am stupid. That's actually about John. Anyway, moving on to actually Carlos Sainz, who was asked about it this weekend. And he was like, do you have anything to say? Do you think like the drivers need to stop talking? And he was like, I am the frog meme drinking the tea. I have nothing to say. He's talking about the Kermit the Frog meme where he's just like sipping tea, where he's like, he's got a lot of thoughts, but he's not going to say them. Probably because he thinks he's going to one day return to Ferrari. And also because everything he has to say is not good. He's not, it's not like positive sentiment that he's keeping to himself. He is keeping negative commentary to himself. That's all I gotta say. Anyway, let's move on to some off-track activities. Oh wait, speaking of Carlos and Ferrari, during the fan stage event, he was asked what it feels like to be the the last driver to win for Ferrari, and it was it was silent for a second as he went. Like everyone laughed and everyone, you could tell that he's like thinking like, what am I supposed to say that? And then he goes, good. At least he's honest. He's an honest king. It probably does feel good to be the last Ferrari driver to win for Ferrari. But then he obviously goes on to say this, like obviously nothing to do with Lewis or Charles. I've been rooting for them from day one. Like, yeah. So he like, it wasn't from that, but like, yeah, what is he supposed to say? It feels bad to be the last Ferrari driver to win. All right, moving on to off-track activities. Kimi Antonelli watched Yannick Sinner win in Turin at the Open. And they took some pics together because Yannick has that like super subtle F1 brand partnership where people are claiming that every F1 shout out is actually just like a brand partnership requirement. I don't think it is. I think Yannick Sinner likes F1 not as much as his brother, which was the last time we got this F1 shout out. But it was cute to see him take a little selfie with Kimi and just like some Italian athlete power. Speaking of drivers at sports, Carlos Sainz and his girlfriend Rebecca and Lando, though he was sitting a couple rows down or a row down in the suite, were at the Raiders football game for Monday Night Football. I don't think he even got like a little sign on they like panned to him and like focused on him. I don't think there was a sign, unless I'm crazy. Though I didn't watch the game, so it could have shown out another time. In other news, there's been some drama with Franco and Lance. Apparently, Franco criticized Lance about his driving in Brazil, to which Lance Stroll, the silent Canadian who doesn't talk to anyone or say anything ever, clapped back and said, maybe he's frustrated and angry with life. He has 0 points. I don't know. He should probably focus on his own things and try to score some points this year. Damn, Lance. Let's see more of that energy. Honestly, let's see any energy from you because I know what it's like to be introverted and not want to be around people and not want to talk and not want to do any of that stuff. I totally get it. But he is like alone all the time. Like this sport has made him quite a recluse. And I feel really bad for him. Like he doesn't seem happy ever. ever. But it's nice to see some spark in there, to know that there's still like blood pumping and heart beating. Oscar accidentally reshared a post on Instagram that was all about how the team favors Lando. He was asked about it in the media. It was deleted later. He was asked about it in the media, and he was like, I haven't reshared anything, so that's what people saw. It was an accident. I think people did math on it, and the time at which it was reshared, he would have been in the car. Although I don't know how you find the time a post is reshared, so I don't know how accurate that mathematics was. But it's also just not Oscar's vibe to do that. And your finger slips. I've reshared so many posts, and I go and I'm like, I didn't reshare any of this. And it's just like when you're scrolling, you just accidentally click that reshare button, and that bubble pops up now that didn't used to be there. So like everyone knows if you reshared something. You don't have to like do a deep dive to figure out who has reshared. So I totally believe he did it on accident. Some people were like, it was his social media manager. I kind of feel like Oscar does not have a social media manager, but I could be wrong. There could be like the McLaren social team might have access to his phone or his PR person or whatever, to his Instagram account. I'm not really sure, but regardless, it wasn't intentional. And I guarantee the PR team of McLaren was having a day. That must have literally thrown them all, like, chaos. Full chaos erupted when one of them realized what Oscar had liked. Panic set in. Disaster struck. It'd actually be quite funny to have a view into the PR team seeing in real time that Oscar has reshared a post about how the team favors favors Lando over him. It would be pretty funny. Racing Bulls posted a video of they've, as usual, been killing it with the social media game. Everything that is produced for Racing Bulls or their partners featuring Isaac and Liam has just been 10 out of 10. They're such a good content creation duo. It was actually really funny. There was Liam's girlfriend posted a video of her trying to make him do a TikTok, and he's like, I do this all day. All I do is make TikToks. I don't want to make another TikTok. That was pretty funny. But anyway, they posted a video of Isaac lying in the position that Rose from the Titanic was lying in when Leonardo DiCaprio drew her, like on the side with her head propped up on her hand. And Isaac goes, I want you to draw me like one of your French drivers. And all the comments were like, this is 100% Isaac's idea. Probably. I honestly could link it might be easier for me to just link the Racing Bulls TikTok account just for than to link every individual video that I find hilarious that Isaac and Liam are forced to do together. Speaking of social media admins, the Mercedes admin asked Toto Wolff if you I don't know where this came from. Asked Toto Wolff if he was Team Jacob or Team Edward. And Toto looks dead straight into the camera and goes, I'm Team Carlisle. And then follows an edit of Carlisle follows. What I want to know, was that answer fed to him? And if so, what was Toto's reaction to being told that he is not Team Edward or Team Jacob, but in fact Team Carlisle? Did he ask follow-up questions, or did he just go with the flow? Has he seen the video? If he didn't know about it, has he seen the video and then had follow-up questions about who this Carlisle man is that has an edit pope after him talking about him? And if that didn't happen, and he did know who Team Edward was, who Team Jacob was, what are his thoughts on the Twilight franchise as a whole, and how did that come about? How did Toto Wolff watching Twilight come about? And can we do a live reaction, please? Max did a cute interview that came out a couple weeks ago where he basically credited all of his racing to his mom, and then also said that she raced against future Formula One drivers, and then she was karting basically up until she had him. And he was like, so unfortunately, I think I ended my mother's motorsports career. But he said that the racing part in me and my family is from my mom's side, which I find, first of all, so wholesome and such a great answer. And also, fuck you, Yas. Hey, if Yas heard, Yas must have been fuming when he heard that Max basically credits his racing career to his. I mean, he's credited his father plenty of times, but it kind of sounds like he credits his father for bullying him into being the number one driver, but he credits his raw talent to his mother. That was not said verbatim. That is my interpretation of the things he said in the past. The way he talks about his father and his racing career, and the way he talks about his mother and his racing career, have different vibes. He talks about how his father forced discipline upon him, how his father like forced him to want to win, and like all gave him that mentality, not discrediting the low-key abusive nature of Yas's parenting for making Max the champion that he is. But I love that Max is crediting his mother with making him a driver in the first place. So the way I'm interpreting this is Yas might have made him a winner, but he would not be a racer without his mother. His raw talent, which is 90% of Max, is his mom. So I love that interpretation, and I'm going to go with that as canon now, even if that's not what he was saying. Speaking of mothers, Oscar was asked about his mother saying in an interview, calling him out in an interview that he like never calls her. And he's like, well, I try to call my mom on Sundays. And the interviewer was like, you mean when you're racing? Like the busiest day of the week for you? And he was like, right, well, the Sundays I'm not racing, I call my mother. And she was like, okay, so there's 24 races in a calendar year, so I'm doing the math here. And he was like, look, also, my mother's in Australia. When I'm not racing, I like to wake up late. If I wake up late, it's midnight in Australia. There's just no good time to call, which is all logistically fair. But these are arguments he's come up with afterwards. But I get, and he also said he's not a phone call person, which I also get. But it's just funny that this banter about him never calling his mother has become like a part of media with him, and it's just because his mom calls him out on like Twitter and like random news outlets in Australia. Also, Max was asked about how he feels about his season as a whole, and his quote just made me, not to make this about me, but like it just, what he said made me feel good about myself and my interpretation of Max as a person, because it's exactly what I've always said about him. Every time there's criticism of Max, this is what I say about Max. So I'm just going to go through his quote, and then we can talk about how right I was. Max said, I'm satisfied with my season. The only point worth criticizing was in Barcelona. That whole move wasn't okay, but it's because I'm passionate about it. I could easily say that this car doesn't work at all, so never mind. I can't accept when I get out of the car and I see I didn't give it my all. I'm angry with myself. I can't give it 80% whenever I get out of the car. I should always be able to tell myself I gave my everything to extract the most out of it. That's why I was angry with what happened on the straight during the restart. Then turn one, and then somebody told me in my ear I should give that position back, and that's when everything turned red. It was wrong, but you also learn from it, and those are moments that most likely won't happen again next year. Which again, I've always said about Max, when you truly see him angry, it will be because he feels like he didn't do his best. And there's so many races where he comes out and he's not angry, he's super calm, and it's because he gave it his all. Unprecedented circumstances got in the way, or whatever else. He feels like the team made the wrong call, or he did the wrong thing on track. That's when he truly gets mad. When he feels like something went wrong on track that he could have prevented, which is what he said. Like, I can't give it 80%, I can give it, like, because then I would leave and I'd be pissed off at myself. And I think it's commendable of him. I think he said it then, but like commendable of him looking back on it, that his one true regret this season is not the car doesn't work that well, not like I finished 6th or 7th. It was his lapse of judgment on track when he got so angry and just made a stupid move. And he knew it was stupid, and everyone knew it was stupid, and that could have cost him the championship, honestly. because I think it was like 10-ish points that he lost because he decided to do that with George, and decided is a strong word for the case. Like, I don't think he was making any coherent decisions at the time. I think he just flew blindly. But it probably cost him the championship. He'd be in a much better position now if he hadn't made that move. But like, it's nice to see him reflect back on it in a calm manner, because Max always knows when he's wrong, and he always admits when he's wrong. He might come off stubborn and like full of himself and like whatever else, but he's never like that. His angriest moments are when things could have been prevented on his end. That's when he gets like the angriest. All right, moving on from how well I know Max Verstappen, who I've never met. Lewis and Charles were doing a lot of media this week. Everyone was doing a lot of media, but there was one media when they were asked what their pre-race meals were. And Lewis was like, I get so mad sitting across from him, watching him eat like a giant bowl of pasta and just like carb load. And I have to sit there, drink the stupid smoothie because I'm too heavy. Oh man, I feel you, Lewis. I feel you. Though to be honest, Charles doesn't look that much lighter than Lewis, so I don't know how he's able to just shovel pasta down his throat and Lewis has to drink a smoothie. It could also be, and they're not mentioning it, that the kitchen refuses to make dairy-free. No, that's not true. There's plenty of pasta, Italian traditional pasta, that doesn't need dairy in it. So never mind. That wasn't it. Lewis must just be fat. I love when skinny people say they're fat. It's funny. All right, moving on. Lap 3, trackside in Vegas. So Alex Albon did an interviewer with a food content creator called Eating with Todd, and there was what it seems like an In-N-Out stand on track that for some reason, none of the videos like called out specifically. They were like, this is an In-N-Out burger. In the video, they weren't like, I'm eating an In-N-Out burger, but it looked like one. And there's a hashtag of an In-N-Out burger, but they weren't explicitly saying, here we are trying an In-N-Out burger. Anyway, there was a stand at the track, and Lewis and this guy Todd were doing an interview and eating burgers. And as soon as as soon as Alex takes a bite, he's like, I must show Carlos this. So he runs into the paddock, into the Williams hospitality, runs to the engineering room or whatever, and opens the door to like very excitedly tell Carlos about this burger that he is now eating. And then his eyes go wide and he closes the door. He's like, he's busy. So then he goes back outside and he's talking with Todd, still eating the burger. And then Carlos comes out. There's like an extra burger there, which I was assuming Alex was going to give to Carlos. And Carlos, like, without like looking around, without anything, Alex goes, look, there's a burger. And then Carlos just reaches for the burger. And Alex like, no, that's mine. I'm just showing you the burger. Which made me lol. But Carlos takes the burger anyway, tries the burger. First he takes out all the tomatoes. Psychotic. I wasn't expecting Carlos to take out. Maybe he's like some sort of burger purist. Like, he definitely eats vegetables. But when I see someone take vegetables out of a burger, I'm like, do you hate vegetables? But I think he just, I guess, doesn't like tomatoes in his burger. And then he took out one of the onions because he said too much onions. There's already one onion. He doesn't need two. Fine. He tries the burger. And like the way Alex experiences food and the way Carlos experiences food, I guess, is very different. And it was very comical to watch because Alex was like very verbal and very like, oh my God, this is so good. Oh my God, I love gherkins on my burger. This is amazing. This is like the best. Like, I'm so excited. And Carlos is like fully unaware of his entire surroundings, just eating this burger, like fully focused in on this burger. And he like takes a bite and I was like, isn't it so good? And Carlos said, yeah. And then like keeps eating the burger, has like 2 or 3 bites, turns around, sees Todd, and he's like, oh, hey. Todd's like, hi. And he's like, oh, you guys going to do an interview? And Alex is like pointing to all the cameras around them. And he's like, we're doing it now. Carlos turns to the camera. He's like, oh, hey. Like half raises his hand as he's still eating this burger. Hilarious. Honestly hilarious. But I also, just in general, besides the way Carlos consumes new food and enjoys food, I just love that Alex's first reaction to taking a bite of the burger was that he must tell Carlos because Carlos loves burgers. And I just find that wholesome. In other very different news. Valtteri Bottas officiated a wedding in Las Vegas. They had like a pop-up wedding venue. And Valtteri did it with like I don't know if they just, it's the way they cut it, but it seemed like his ceremonial words were quite crypt. It was like, do you like each other? Cool. You're married now. It was a little more than that, but it was still really funny. Imagine being married by Valtteri Bottas in like a baby pink chapel in Vegas. So weird, but fun. But fun. For some reason, the Girl Scouts were there. I don't know why they had a presence at the F1 race, but they were there. And George, unsurprisingly, took it upon himself to be troop leader, troop mom, whatever the term is. I didn't do Girl Scouts. But if it's Girl Scouts cookie season, by the way, where do I get them? How do I find a Girl Scout? That sounds weird. But I'd like some cookies, please. Anyway, he's like took it upon himself to take these Girl Scouts through. I'm assuming Mercedes bought like a whole bunch of boxes. So they had like one Girl Scout was carrying like a tray of samples, and then the others were carrying baskets, but they were just handing out the cookie boxes from what I understand, from what it looked like. But I did see like a table stand where they were like sitting with their boxes of cookies. I don't know if they were literally selling them at the race. That's a crazy move from whoever organized that. Like 10 out of 10 decision, but like, how do you go about like, there's going to be a Grand Prix in Vegas. Let's get our girls there. That's how we're going to sell cookies. People already spent like over $2,000 on their tickets. They might as well spend like $10 on a box of cookies. Anyway, George is like taking these girls through the Mercedes hospitality and like helping them give out cookies, I guess. So he took them up to Kimi, who was eating with his health coach or whatever. And he was like, Kimi, do you want to try a cookie? And they were like, you can try this one or this one or this one. And he like picked one. I was like, I want chocolate. So he picked one up. And he's like, they're like, do you want a box as well? And he's like, okay. So they gave him a box of Thin Mints, and he had a sample Thin Mint, and he bought it and he bit into it and he was like, but he had just been eating salmon. And so George was like, how does that taste with the salmon? And Kim was like, not great. He's like, let me sip it with some tea. But but Kimmy was having like, as George pointed out, a shot of tea. It was like an espresso cup for like a shot of espresso, but with tea in it. And then he had a second shot of espresso, second espresso shot cup with tea with milk in it. He's like, I'm going to do it the British way. And then he dipped the Thin Mint into his milky tea. And the Girl Scouts looked incredibly confused by this entire situation. At which point George pointed out that Kimmy's performance coach was sitting there. And he's like, this is the man that makes sure that Kimmy eats well. And he's like, Sergey, is this okay? And then the guy was like, well, it's already in his mouth, so guess so. Somehow I don't think Kimmy is struggling with weight, but anyway, it was a very rogue interaction, but amusing nonetheless. All right, Kimmy also was asked about who his Friendsgiving lineup would be, and he said Max, George, Ollie, and Lewis, which is adorable. Kimi is so into his little mentors. He loves Max Verstappen so deeply. He will find him at any opportunity. He will cling on to him. The way the rookies have taken to Max Verstappen is one of the funniest things I've ever seen. To see this paternal side come out in Max is just like great. I love it. Him and George are both like mother hens in very different ways. Oscar also did a race before the interview, where they're like running through the paddock and like trying to catch a moment with the drivers. And he was told, the lady was like, what if I tell you that you don't have to have the exact same strategy as your teammate? And something, like throwing I think a bit of shade at McLaren. And Oscar starts grinning so wide as she's talking, tries to stifle the grin. And then when she pauses and turns the mic to him, he goes, you'd be someone with an opinion. Needless to say, I think he agrees with her, but not up to either of them, is it? All right, moving on to the celebrities that were present at the Las Vegas Grand Prix, most notably, and shoved down our throats at every second, were Beyonce and Jay-Z, who were in the Ferrari garage. Beyonce did one look that was a full leather driving suit. I think it was a callback to her 2009 appearance at a Grand Prix, but either way, it was a lot. and Lewis did a hot lap with her and Jay-Z individually. They both did a separate hot lap, which I don't know if the full videos of those are going to be released, but they looked stressed, but also excited. Beyonce was like shrieking, which I think is the most I've ever heard her speak. And then at the race, she had another full Ferrari fit from the label, the Ferrari fashion label. It was like a full red leather jumpsuit, but like short jumpsuit, and then like a jacket. She looked really cool, but like it was a lot. It was a lot. Yeah, it's like I'm imagining someone showing up to like a fencing match dressed like the fencers, but it was a fashion statement. Speaking of fashion, Cynthia Riva was there. They had her do like a segment where she ranked the drivers singing, and it was all of them singing from their cars, and it included Lando's "It's Friday Then," Saturday, Sunday, what? And then it included Jensen Button singing, I don't remember what. It included Seb singing "We Are the Champions," I think, and maybe Jensen was singing "We Are the Champions." Seb was there, Jensen was there, Fernando was there, Lando was there, Carlos was there singing "Smooth Operator," which she did not rank high, but she liked the song, so she gave him she said he wasn't singing very well. And then the last one was Max singing "Viva Las Vegas," and she was like, I can hear melody in that, and she gave him the highest score, and I thought that was incredible, and I thought this was a great segment, and we should do more of that. And I want to also see the drivers reacting to her rating them. Maybe a live situation. Cynthia Riva was also doing the intro for the Sky F1 broadcast, and they made it like this incredibly dramatic thing where she's giving this monologue about friendships and like being tested and how someone might be deemed wicked, etc., etc. And it's like panning from her talking to like an edit of all the driver rivalries / friendships over the years. It included Seb and oh my god, what's his name? Mark Webber, Seb and Mark Webber. It included Lewis and Max. It included of course Lewis and Nico, and the prominent duo was of course Oscar and Lando, because I guess they're the most timely. But like, to me, based on her monologue and based on the fact that I'm assuming they were trying to reference the Glinda Elphaba friendship to rivalry pipeline, the only people that should have been in that edit is Nico and Lewis Hamilton. That should have been an exclusive Nico and Lewis edit. Like, they're so for good coded, and it will be something that just like I can see Nico just watching on repeat. It would have been his favorite piece of content ever. He'd be hate watching it. Lewis would have seen it, enjoyed it, but like never acknowledged it. Like, they're so for good. Like, even though it seemed, I think, I don't know who's Elphaba, who's Glinda. I'm not going to get into that, but like, it's still very much like that. They were the closest friends, I think, out of all of these partnerships that were showcased here. So that felt the most relevant. And also, Brosades is such a thing. They definitely can make. I wonder if there is a for good edit to Brosades. Should look into that. Anyway, they really used Cynthia for all they could. They really pumped content out of her. On the grid walk, we saw Hunter and Tara Woodhull, the Olympians. He's a Paralympian and she is an Olympian in track and field. And I don't remember. He runs and she falls on her butt, but like on purpose. I wasn't meant to be offensive. I forgot what her thing. Long jump? I think it's long jump. I'm not sure. Anyway, they're both Olympians. And Tara, of course, love her. She is a Max and Yuki fan, and Hunter's a McLaren fan. He didn't get a chance to clarify the details of his fandomness, who in McLaren, why McLaren, etc., etc. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt because I do love them so much. But He is a McLaren fan, but she's a Max and Yuki fan, so we're all good. Joshua Pierce, aka Damson Idris from the F1 movie, was there, and he was very excited to be back. Also, he gave Carlos Sainz a shout out, and I just love that he's a Carlos Sainz fan. And I'm now wondering if he's the one who requested that line in the movie where he's at the club and a girl starts flirting with him and goes, "Wait, oh my God, are you a Formula One driver?" And he's like, "Yeah," and she's like, "Can you introduce me to Carlos Sainz?" I kind of feel like that might have been his request. Anyway, Louis Tomlinson was there. Oh, Terry Crews was also seen on the grid walk. He had a quick chat with them, and of course, we'll see him a bit later after the race. Louis Tomlinson was there. He gave out the pole tire to Lando specifically, and as we all know, well, I don't know if everyone knows, but he is a big Lando fan, and he also did a concert on Saturday night or Friday night, qualifying day. Whatever. Logan Learman was there. I think he was a guest of Heineken, but he did like a full like profesh video because he's apparently obsessed with F1. Posted it on his Instagram. It was pretty great. The whole cast of the Samurai Champloo was there basically, but like separately, Conrad, the actor that played Conrad, and his girlfriend were there, as well as Steven, the brother, and his girlfriend. They came as a foursome, and then Jeremiah was there as well, but separately. Weird. And just in general, there was like, I blinked the carousel. There were so many celebrities I couldn't even keep count. Before I forget, Catherine Zeta-Jones and Michael Douglas were also there, who are huge, consistent F1 fans. I remember I think it was in Monaco last year. Maybe it was this year. I can't remember. No, maybe it was last year. Michael Douglas was there alone. And Brundle came up to him on the grid walk, and he was like, "How are you doing?" And he immediately goes, "Catherine is filming for Wednesday, so it's like coming out in September, and like she couldn't make it." And then Brundle's like, "No, I was wondering how you're doing. Like, how's it going?" And I just love that he launched into information about his wife. I love that. But Catherine Zeta-Jones also waved the checkered flag at the end, so that was exciting. Anyway, with that very long celeb roundup, that concludes the digital warm-up. On to analysis. So before we hit quali, in FP2, there was a loose drain cover that ended up causing the session to be red flagged. Vegas really needs to sort out their drain covers. I don't know how this is a recurring theme or why this is a recurring theme, but I think it was the very first Las Vegas Grand Prix when Carlos tripped on a loose drain cover in his car. It caused like $1 million repair job for his car. That was crazy. I mean, I'm glad they did it before someone got damaged, but why the hell do you have so many loose drain covers? You know this event is coming. It's not like it's a surprise. So it was wet most of the weekend up until the race. The race was fully dry, but quali was wet. There were definitely wet conditions, and Max said that while he likes wet conditions, this was like driving on ice, which is crazy because driving on ice is scary for a regular car, and I can't even imagine what it's like driving in an F1 car. Max, just like in general, hates Vegas. They all are not the hugest fans of Vegas. I think it was actually Daniel Ricciardo who initially, when they were asked like, "Where do you want to see a track?" and he was like, "Vegas." A lot of them don't like the spectacle. Post-race interview, they were asked how they feel about Vegas, and George gave like "It's fine," blah 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 blah. Max gave like, "There are different types of races for different types of people. Some people enjoy more spectacle. Me personally, I'm not a spectacle type of person. So Vegas is a little harder for me, but I understand this is part of the game." Blah, 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 blah. And then Lando gave the most like normal answer, I think. He was basically like, it's better than what it was, because the first year we got here, that was too much for all of us. And now it's like, whatever. The first year was insane, where they made them do this whole show and like they rose up on like these platforms. It was very like Hunger Games-esque. Now it's like a bit more subdued, and like where we got the Bellagio fountain show, that was like annoying, but it didn't at least involve the driver, so they were less like peeved about it. They weren't the spectacle. They still had the weird announcer thing, where like people called him out, but it wasn't as intense as the first one. Remember when Checo Perez was called out? He was like, Checo Perez. And then Checo walked out and walked right up to him and just, they looked at each other and Checo didn't know what to do. That was pretty funny. Anyway, speaking of quali, Yuki ended up starting from the pit lane for the race because his car was modified in park farm conditions and he ended up taking a new unit. And Carlos was under investigation for rejoining the track in front of Lance Stroll in an unsafe manner, but he escaped the penalty, so he will remain in P3. Conspiracy theorists will say that the FIA turned a blind eye so that Oscar wouldn't start higher up on the grid. Just kidding. But conspiracy theorists could say that and probably did. All right, so the starting grid is as follows: Lando, Max, Carlos, George. Carlos is in P3. Sorry, let's take a moment, deep breath. Carlos qualified in P3 in a Williams in Vegas. That's insane. That's actually insane. Another thing about Williams, they can never be doing well at the same time. One of them is always doing well, but never at once. Well, two of them could be doing badly at the same time, but two can never be doing well at the same time. It's just never happened. Whatever deal they made with whatever which, it's one at a time or none at all. All right, moving on, starting grid. Lando, Max, Carlos, George, Oscar Piastri, Liam Fernando, Isaac Charles, Pierre Nico, Lance Esteban, Ollie Franco, Alex Kimi, Gabby Lewis, and then Yuki starting from the pit lane. Lewis, by the way, was incredibly dejected, starting so far low on the grid. P19 is crazy. This has been a terrible year for Lewis. I'm hoping, praying, fingers crossed, that the new regulations will give Ferrari some sort of magical, will do something for Lewis, because going out in this manner from such a storied F1 career is just deeply unfair and deeply terrible for a driver of his caliber. Like, to end on this note when his ability is not on this note. Do you know what I mean? All right, moving on to the race. So at the start, Lando takes off and he almost seems like he got away and he had a decent start, but then Max just shoots ahead of him. And at this time, Lando attempted a move that was very Max Verstappen. He did what Max Verstappen would do. But in a Lando fashion, he backed out at the last minute, which allowed Max to do what he does best and chew forward. I think it was David Coulthard. There was a quote from David Coulthard that was basically like, Lando attempted to play Max's game, but he actually doesn't know the rules of Max's game, so he just couldn't do it. Which is basically the story of Lando's life. I will give Lando the props that usually this scenario where he attempts a move that's like bold, but he fails at it, results in him going way down the pecking order, or like DNFing or crashing or just like a whole host of things. And he kept his cool, his composure, and he kept going on. It caused him to lose 2 positions, but he made his way back up. Not that it mattered in the end, but he did really well considering, which definitely shows his growth. In the past, this would have derailed him. It would have been a whole situation, but it shows like he's really learned how to keep his composure and his cool in stressful situations. And like, I think that's a lot of power to him and shows why he's doing so well in the second half of the season. It's not just luck, much as I wish it was. It's not just luck. It is talent, and it is the thing that I've always said he lacks in, which is learning from his mistakes. Did he make the same mistake again? Yes, but he made half of the mistake. He didn't make the whole mistake. He recovered and he continued with a sound mind without being frazzled. Like, he just continued to drive well. And in the past, this would have really thrown him through a loop and it would have just ruined his whole race. And it hasn't. So we really are seeing growth in Lando, and it's not just like a streak of good luck. He's genuinely learning, growing, and improving as a driver. And that's wonderful to see because it feels deserved. It feels like he's earned the position he's at right now, which is all you want from a driver. At the same time, when Lando loses a spot to Max, George also shoots ahead of Lando. So now Lando's in P3. So the original order was Lando, Max, Carlos, George. And now, before we're even done with the first lap, it's Max, George, Lando, Carlos. Oscar ended up dropping 2 places within the opening lap. So he's now down in P7 as opposed to his starting place of P5. And that's because both Racing Bulls ended up overtaking him. But he also had contact with Liam Lawson in turn 1. But as with most turn 1 lap 1 incidents, the Stews did not really follow up with any sort of penalty. Oscar definitely disagreed in the post-race. Like, I guess we can just barge people out of the way and move on with our lives. But, like, that's pretty standard for lap 1. The issue with Oscar in Brazil, it wasn't at turn 1, but it was at the restart that the issue he had with Kimi. So it wasn't exactly the same. We all know the Stews have always turned a blind eye during turn 1. But, so, like, and it was literally almost not talked about, so I don't think anyone was expecting him to get a penalty, but he still did have contact with someone, did hit him, which did cause him to fall back, which is annoying. He just had bad luck. He's had bad luck, little support from his team, and he's just not performed to his best abilities. I wouldn't go so far as to say he's making like mistake after mistake after mistake, but like he's just not doing well. But by the time, so we got a virtual safety car by lap 2 because there was a collision between Gabby and Lance Stroll, which caused them both to DNF. So we had a virtual safety car. And by the time the virtual safety car hits, by the way, Lewis has gone from P19 to P13, which is an incredible hop in such a short period of time. All right, so Max's race. Max took full advantage of Lando's tendency, as we've talked about, not to follow through on big moves and outmaneuvered him and shot forward to P1, maintained the lead the entire race. At one point, Lando got told to let's go get Max, which GP immediately reported to Max saying, Lando's been told to come and get you. And there was like this pause, and I think everyone, including GP, was waiting for Max to respond. But Max didn't respond with words. He just responded by not letting Lando pass him, which is the best way to respond. And after the race, I think he was like, oh yeah, I heard what Lando said on the radio. That was pretty funny. Or what Lando was told on the radio. But I just love his approach. That like he just like doesn't need to talk. He's just going to drive faster than Lando. Kimi's race was by far and away, I think, the most exceptional part of this whole race. He started P17 and he drove all the way to P4, ended in P5 because he had a 5-second penalty for a false start. Barely though. Like they showed it, and until we did it in full slow-mo, like extra slow-mo, you couldn't see how he very slightly jumped a little bit ahead at the start. It was a little dramatic. I don't know how the student caught that, but they did. So he got a 5-second penalty. Everyone was confused, including Kim. He's like, I don't think I moved. And he literally barely moved, but he did move. It was a mistake. He got a 5-second penalty, and kudos to him. He managed to drive fast enough so that only one driver went ahead of him at the end of the race. So he finished P4, but he swapped with Oscar, who ended P5. So the end result, before any additional rulings, was that Oscar finished in P4 and Kimi finished in P5. Otherwise, though, there was like a chance that Charles was also going to get ahead of him, which would have put him back into P6. But because he drove so well and so consistently, he kept everyone behind him at bay, which also helped George secure his podium position and helped Kimi only have one person within his 5-second gap. So great driving from Kimi, literally so good. He's a little rookie. From P17 to P4 is wild behavior, like in a best way possible, like such good driving. Like cool, calm, collected, under control, like knows what's going on in front of him, knows what's going on behind him, like just 10 out of 10 work from Kimi. And I'm so glad that he's having like a bit of a redemption arc, because it would have been horrible if his like stint of poor races in the middle of the season happened towards the end and would carry that vibe over into the next season. But because he's ending on a pretty good high, basically 2 podiums in a row, I'm hoping that will give him the confidence to like really perform next year. A couple of other moments to talk about. Alex had an incident with Lewis, which required him to get a new front wing. And in addition to that, he had no radio the entire time he was racing. The radio was not working. So he was flying blind, basically, and which caused a whole host of other issues. And regardless, he ended up DNFing. He was asked post-race in the media pen how it felt, if it was stressful not having the radio, and he just went, actually, it was kind of peaceful. But that sounds stressful as fuck. You don't know what's going on around you. You don't know if you need to come in. You don't know if you need to come out. Like not having radio sounds really stressful. George had a steering issue the entire race, which also caused him to go faster to try and create a gap, and then he ended up degrading his tires. So he was struggling with a lot of issues. So the fact that he finished on the podium is incredible. And he said in the post-race press conference that they've just had a more consistent car this year, which could be true, but he has also been more consistent this year. Like he was like, last year there were more highs and more lows because the car was so inconsistent, but this year we're just sort of like, the car is performing so consistently that our results are kind of consistent. But I would argue that he is also consistent. Like he is driving that car really, really well. He keeps finding himself on the podium, and no one knows how he got there. Like we know how he got there, but like no one was like talking about him. They're like, oh, George is on the podium. And that just keeps happening. And I think especially when he has issues like this and he's still able to bring that car into the top 3 is really great work. So George has had an excellent season. Truly excellent. Really, I'm high confidence for Mercedes for me. That doesn't happen often. And then another good drive was Lewis from P20 to P10. After the race, he still said it was his worst season ever. He was really miserable. He does not have high hopes for next season. I do. I would really like to think that Ferrari will get his shit together, or at least that the new regulations will put everyone on an even playing field, because everyone's going to be confused and not know what to do, which will give Lewis more of a chance. But he is struggling, and I feel really bad for him. I feel bad for Charles. I feel bad. Like, I feel like, I think I've said this before, but like Carlos, people keep saying, well, Carlos is doing better than Lewis at Williams. Haha. Which kind of haha, but also Carlos has a lot more experience coming to a mediocre car and making it work for him. He's had a lot of experience building teams from the ground up. He's had a lot of experience of just not dominating. And Lewis has just come from a decade of domination. He's had a rough couple of years after that, like right before he came to Ferrari after 2021. It hadn't been easy for him. But he's not used to this experience. It's been a long time since he came to a new team and to a car that wasn't like a winner off the bat. Like, it's hard. That's why we've seen Charles, who's had his entire career to make sense of the absolute nonsense that's going on at Ferrari, and to be able to drive that truck of a car. And so Ferrari rolling over in his grave for me calling a Ferrari a truck. But it's a lot for Lewis to come to terms with. And that's not taking away from him being a good or bad driver. That's not taking away from his experience. That's obviously not what that means. What to me it means is that it's a new situation and he needs to adapt. And adapting to a situation where your one tool does not work is hard. Not anyone can do that. That's like a skill that's honed by years of being put on shitty teams, which is what happened to Carlos. So I'm really hoping that after this year of shit, next year is going to be so much better for Lewis, and we're going to see him thrive as much as we can at Ferrari, and things will get better. So I have a rare dose of hope for Lewis's last couple of years in F1. Over at McLaren, Oscar's race was like fine. He had the contact in lap 1, which sent him back a bit, but he spent the rest of the race fighting for P4 and ultimately staying close enough to Kimi that he was able to maximize on Kimi's penalty and get P4. However, none of that mattered in the end, but that's fine. Lando, on the other hand, by the way, said in an interview after the race, I think it was in the post-race press conference, that Red Bull was in another league to them. And I'm just like, were they? were they in another league, Lando? I think once again, Lando is misconstruing Red Bull having a fast car with Max outdriving him. Lando attempted a Max-style move in turn 1 and ultimately couldn't follow through, which despite there not being a catastrophic ending to that, like him not bottling the whole thing, which is what I talked about a little bit earlier, he salvaged it and he still did a fantastic race. But despite that, he still kind of fucks up a move that he was trying to make, a bold move he was trying to make. And despite it showing his growth and that he is able to finish races really strong despite minor setbacks, like it does show that he's still capable of making mistakes and having moments of doubt. And Max's favorite meal is other drivers having moments of doubt and making small mistakes. And that's why this always goes the exact same way. Other than that, though, Lando had a pretty good race. Except I do want to point out, this is not on Lando. At one point, Lando's engineer asked him what he wanted to do, and Lando said, whatever we need to do to make this happen. And then his engineer goes, well, in that case, just do more. Just do more. Sir, I was thrilled that Lando attempted a move, failed, but persevered and ended and was like in second position. I was thrilled that that's where we were at. You should be too. You should not be encouraging your driver to be more reckless or make another crazy move for the sake of winning when he doesn't need this win to win the championship, which should be your ultimate goal. And for some reason, it's not for McLaren. McLaren doesn't see, like, Zach Brown did a podcast a couple weeks ago in between the last two races, and I think on the podcast he said, like, our ultimate goal is not to win the drivers' championship. If we had to decide between two drivers to win the drivers' championship, we would choose none. He went really hard in on that, like, that belief and that approach, and like it's really weird. But the drivers' championship for some reason doesn't seem to be a priority for McLaren. When Lando's engineer tells him to just do better, do more, to a driver who's notoriously struggled with moments of doubt and like pressure and like all of these things and like panic moves and bad moments when he thinks he needs to do something crazy, like, to say that to Lando, I think is crazy. Obviously, it went well. Lando ignored it and just carried on. But like, and I don't know if it was a joke, but like, I feel like you shouldn't say that on the radio. That's not the time to joke. Like, just do more is a crazy thing to say to your driver in the middle of a heated race. Just saying. The commentators, on the other hand, are very impassioned about the World Drivers' Championship and very impassioned about it being Lando that is World Drivers' Championship. I think this time, I don't think Brundle was there, but I think it was Crofty and Jensen Button, both of whom were like creaming their pants at the thought of Lando winning this championship. Jensen was like, I was a boy from Somerset, and Lando's a boy from Somerset, and together we can be champions that are from Somerset. Chill. Truly, the entire F1 Sky team is just like obsessed with Lando winning the driver championship, and they're not even disguising it well. Like, there is no one else they want to win the championship besides Lando Norris. Well, I guess Lewis, but Lewis is not in contention. So anyway, moving on to the biggest drama of this whole race weekend is the McLaren disqualifications. So during the last half of the race, lap and a half of the race, Lando had significantly slowed down because it seemed that he was running like very light on fuel and they needed to have enough left for the FIA to do their checks at the end. So he was doing like an intense lift and coast, like very Ferrari-esque lift and coast. Like, it would give them a run for their money how much he was lifting and coasting here. So when the race was over, rumors started flying about that there was going to be some sort of potential disqualification and then McLaren was going to be under investigation, and everyone assumed that there was something wrong with the fuel, but there wasn't, because he finished the race and like he had enough, he was lifting and coasting enough to make it through. And then lo and behold, it was a double disqualification for plank wear, which no one saw coming. McLaren's explanation was like there was a lot of extenuating circumstances during this weekend. There was rain, it was ice, it was almost icy. It wasn't icy, but it was getting there. It was really cold. There was red flags that they weren't into. There was like they like came up with like a list, like a laundry list of reasons of why this could have happened, but it didn't happen to any other team. It only happened to them. You can't always anticipate these things, but like as a now constructor winning championship team with 2 drivers in contention for the drivers championship, you need to be better than this. You are not just flying by the seat of your pants anymore. Like there's so much on the line here, and you make this mistake, and granted it is a mistake, like, but like you guys should have tried harder. Like you just let both of your drivers down. Both of them at the same time. Hence, McFizzle. Just like fizzling, all the hopes and dreams fizzling away. And what's left? Max Verstappen just rising up to the top. Ready to snatch it all. Like McLaren, if this driver championship is lost, it will be McLaren's fault. And I will also say that even if they win, one of the drivers wins. Obviously, only one can win. If they both lose, it'll be entirely McLaren's fault. If one loses, the other losing, I would still blame McLaren. They're like my number one enemy at this point. They're on my list. They're fucking up left and right. All right, post-race, the fountain show came out of nowhere. I don't know why I kept seeing Mickey Mouse conducting a fountain show. From what I understand, this is recorded in advance, but they made us all watch it. Everyone is sitting in America. It's like 11 p.m. In Europe, it's like 4 a.m. Everyone wants to go to bed or go back to bed. And they're making us watch this stupid Bellagio fountain show directed by Mickey with like fireworks and like I don't know what else. Like there was like a car in the sky. I don't even know how they made that. Like lasers, I guess. I don't know. Wasn't necessary. Why was Disney so involved? I know they have some sort of partnership for next year, but like, I mean, I watched it on Disney Plus. Is that why it was available on Disney Plus? I thought it was because of ESPN, but there was so much Mickey and Minnie happening. Anyway, I found the fountain show entirely unnecessary, but you know, it's Vegas. Whew, glitz and glam. Kimi Antonelli in Park Firm runs up to Max Verstappen to hug him. Max hugs him, and you can see Max like asking where he finished, and you can see Kimi holding up 4 with his hands, and you can see Max's entire face go, wow, that's amazing. And he looks so happy for Kimi. Mercedes posted this clip on their TikTok with the audio of the baby turtle from Finding Nemo going, Dad, did you see that? It was pretty wholesome that Kimi just really wanted to celebrate with Max, and Max was like so excited for him. Oh, love it. Now, one of my favorite moments from this entire post-race situation. In Vegas, if you remember, we don't have the cool-down room. We have a cool-down car where various vehicles drive the drivers from Park Firm to where the ceremony is going to be. This time, it was a Cadillac baby pink built entirely from Legos, driven by Terry Crews. And it was large enough to fit all 3 drivers in the back. So it was George, Lando, and Max. They made them like baby pink Lego sunglasses that they all wore at various points in time. They get in and they're like all chatting like, oh, this is comfortable, this is nice, like blah blah blah. And then at one point Max goes, I think it's time for some music, and Terry goes, I got you, and then he immediately launches into 1,000 Miles by Vanessa Carlton. And then Max starts singing along. He's like, making my way downtown. It was honestly, first of all, for some reason I just wasn't expecting Max to make a pop culture reference in addition to that reference being wrapped up into a request for a celebrity. That was like a weird interaction I just wasn't expecting from Max, but it really humanizes him. Like, I just love that Max likes white chicks and that he knew exactly where he knows Terry Crews from and that Terry complied. immediately just started singing and like did the face that he does in the car, like straight to the camera. Oh, it was such a funny moment. And then they get there, Terry drops him off, and George's like, "Thanks for the ride, Terry." And Lando's like, "Great driving." And then one of them was like, "Back here after the ceremony." And Terry's like, "No problem, guys, bye." It was just a great interaction. It's just so funny that Terry Crews has become just like this weird mainstay of F1. Anyway, after the race, obviously there was a disqualification. So everyone above everyone moved up at least one. No, everyone moved up two. Yeah, everyone moved up two. Except for Max. Max stayed. George moved up one. Kimi moved up two because he was P5 because of the penalty, but then Oscar and Lando were disqualified, which would have been P3, which made him a podium position. And I just loved all of the Mercedes like updates on their graphics to accommodate this instead of posting new graphics. It's my favorite piece of like graphic design banter, my favorite style of graphic design banter. They reposted the graphic that they originally posted, but like in paint. It looked like it was in paint or like just like with a paintbrush on their phone, crossed out the numbers and put the new numbers in. So it was P2 and P3. That was pretty funny. And then they had a video of Kimi holding up some sort of plaque showing that he went from P17, showing how many places he made up. So from P17 to P4 is 13 places. I think it was 12. And it was making up 12 places, and then it was like cross that and put like 14 or 13 or whatever the new number is. And it's just Kimi holding this, and it's just like this like painted on like cross out. It was really funny. Anyway, GP went up on the podium with them. And Max there were no rookies to give their moment to, so Max just immediately poured the entire bottle on GP's head. Loved it. Speaking of GP though, in Park Firm, Max had run over to GP. He was standing on the side. He doesn't always come out, but he came out here, and they were talking to each other because I think there was something Max tried to say to him on the radio, and GP was like, don't say it over the radio. So he like runs over to him, and they're both covering their mouths so the camera can't pick up what they're saying, and like having this entire conversation with a hand over their mouths. And I just like really want to know what they were saying that was so gossipy that it couldn't be picked up by cameras. I want to know what they were saying. What was this post-race gossip sesh? Also post-race, in the Park Firm interviews, it was in front of the Bellagio fountain with David Coulthard and Sam Worthington. I don't really know why, but it was the two of them interviewing the three podium finishers. And Lando swore on national TV. He was like, "Yeah, I fucked up." And David Coulthard's like, "You can't say that here." And then Max's whole face was like, "Oh, he swore." He didn't say he swore, but that's what his face was saying. And then George grabs the mic and he's like, "That's a fine." Oh, it made me laugh. Because Lando initially said, "I effed up." And then he decided to redo it for some reason, grabbed the mic back. And he's like, "Well, I said I fucked up." Just really wanted to emphasize it there. All right, race results. Keep in mind that originally Lando finished second and Oscar finished fourth. Lando went through all the post-race podium stuff, the cool-down car, the podium, the post-race interviews, etc., the post-race press conference. But he and Oscar have now been disqualified, which means that they are not in the places they finished it. In fact, they're not there at all. Everyone moved up. So the race results are as follows. Max, George, Kimi, Charles, Carlos, Isaac, Nico, Lewis, Esteban, Ollie, Alonso, Yuki, Pierre, Liam, Franco. And then DNFs are Alex, Gabriel, and Lance Stroll. And then disqualifications are Lando and Oscar. Tragic. But the driver standings now, with those disqualifications, are Lando Norris with 390, Oscar Piastri with 366, and Max Verstappen with 366. Oscar is only ahead of Max Verstappen because he's had more race wins. So, but they are equal in points. And we don't really care about the rest. No one gives a shit at this point. I'm not good enough in math to figure out the various scenarios that play out in Oscar or Max's favor. It is certainly not going to be easy, but it is definitely going to be easier than it was like 12 hours ago when Lando had finished second. Now, we're headed into the final two GPs, which includes two races and a sprint. I think Lando is able to finish second in all of those and still win the championship. But he could finish below second, and Max could win all of them, or Oscar could win all of them. Oscar and Max basically have the same work cut out for them, and Lando has to suffer. And both Oscar and Max really need the support and team spirit of every other driver on the grid to really, really help them out and take some of those key positions away from Lando. What that requires is for Oscar to perform. We're leaving America, which he really fucking struggles in. Like, that's not his vibe. He did great in the other Arab tracks, so I'm hoping that Qatar and Abu Dhabi he's gonna randomly start shining again. I'm hoping Max will be Max, and I'm hoping Lando will be Lando of yore. I just don't want him to win this championship. I'm so sorry. Anyway, driver of the day, Max Verstappen officially. I think it should have been Kimi, personally. Not that Max didn't have a good drive, but Kimi's was exceptional. Kimi going from P17 to P4, being slotted down to P5 and then back up to P3, just like 10 out of 10 work from Kimi. He's a little rookie, and he did this in a track no one likes. So go Kimi. The dick in the box. Let's go with our default setting of McLaren. By the way, how do you think McLaren is preparing for the World Drivers' Championship? Because, like, in theory, I guess before this qualification, I don't know if it can happen next week unless Oscar and Max DNF. But how has McLaren prepared for the World Drivers' Championship? Have they printed shirts for both Lando and Oscar? Does the Rebel print shirts for Max? Is F1 in charge of creating and distributing these shirts? Do they have all three options available? Like, what if McLaren's exclusively in charge, what if they only made, like, Lando shirts? That'd be pretty rude. Like, what's happening? How do you prepare for these situations? Because, like, I know, like, in a football team, like, when they go to the Super Bowl, they can have, like, Super Bowl champion shirts made that they either use or don't use. But when one team has two options for the World Drivers' Championship, do they make both options just in case? That sounds horrible. It truly sounds horrible. Anyway, would love to know the logistics of how to prepare for two teammates being in contention for the World Drivers' Championship. If anyone has that very specific insight, please share. All right. Anyway, that's it for the Las Vegas Grand Prix. What a race, what a weekend, what a couple of races we have coming up. It all is still to play for. Well, not all. One thing is still to play for three very specific people, and anything can happen at this point. No, everyone thought Lando had it in the bag this weekend, and now we've just become a little bit more unsure. So until next time, until Qatar, can't wait to see what happens next. See you then. Box.